Hey everyone, it's Tyler Wynn with the winning team, and this is the Changing the Game Through Real Estate podcast. One of the main reasons we started this show was we wanted to help people by bringing on guests with inspiring stories that can teach us information that we should have been taught in schools. This week on the podcast, we had the opportunity to talk to Kyle and Lauren, who share their story on how they got started in real estate and honestly how you too can achieve wealth through rentals. All right. Well, today we have Lauren and Kyle from y'all are on Instagram, like called Rentals to Wealth. Do y'all come up with that name yourself? Just that's your goal.
Yeah, it was funny. Lauren brought a list of names, like right before we launched, like the Instagram page.
And a whole list.
I remember sitting down reading through them and was like, "Oh, Rentals to Wealth. That's pretty cool."
So
it's just the one we went with.
And then it got to the point where it took us forever to come up with a decision. It's like we just got to make a decision and just move forward. We could always change it in the future, but it has stuck. So.
Yeah. I feel like once you come up with it, it's like you feel weird, like having to change it later.
Yeah, especially when you start to get a following, and then all of a sudden it's like a different name. Yeah, I know.
It actually is something that we've been thinking about because rentals is rather specific. And if we want to expand our real estate career into different types of asset classes or flips or other things, does our name not like match anymore? So it's actually been something we've been talking about recently, but
a whole. You like rental wealth etc. or like something like that.
That's true.
Or rentals wealth -flip.
Or just make sure you permit the name change really well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I kind of know a little bit of y'all's story, but can you explain to people that haven't heard it, like how y'all kind of got into real estate? Like, what was y'all's first deal, and what interested y'all in real estate as a whole?
Yeah, Kyle and I met in college and did not have any wherewithal of like future finances or our future at all. And then when we moved in together and started looking in to buy a house, we had some money just from like savings in college and growing up. And we thought, like, how can we invest this? So I just Googled how to invest your money when you're like in your 20s. And I found Brandon Turner from Bigger Pockets, his like first blog, pre-Bigger Pockets. It's called Real Estate in Your 20s. And I just devoured that thing. And I brought it, after researching and doing all this deep dive into all of his blogs, I brought it to Kyle. And I was like, I think real estate is a really smart thing for us to do. And at the time, we really just saw it as a means to retirement, not necessarily to retire early, but just to fund our retirement. So Kyle's a police officer. You have to retire at 55.
Yeah.
And a lot of police officers will then go get a separate career after that. And I was like, how cool would that be, though, is that like when you retire at 55, you could just be done, and then I could just be done with you. So that was our first kind of foray into it.
And then so nobody was worse with like finances and investing than me. I had zero knowledge of any of it. I was a DIYer just from growing up with a father that just did everything. We never called the contractor. It was always we were doing it. And so that's how I kind of learned to do all that sort of stuff. And then when I read Brandon Turner's ebook, it was like we knew that we wanted to get into like a residential multifamily that we wanted to renovate to some extent, whether it was hiring out or doing it. So for me, I loved doing the work. So it was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. Let's get into the search. And then we started to search for those homes.
Yeah. And our first deal was a house hack duplex.
Yeah. Which we DIY'd the whole thing. And it was our first foray into kind of managing a renovation and DIYing a renovation. So it was totally haphazard. We were all over the place. We went over budget and
behind schedule.
But it was nice for the house hack to be able to do that because we would have been buying a home together regardless. Anyway. So that's why we thought that the house hack is a great first step into investing.
It's forgiving.
Yeah. So it's good that y'all kind of had the same kind of mindset because that would have been kind of horrible if like, oh, I'm all about investing. And he's like, nah.
We did not have the same mindset. She cried when we got our first offer accepted. She was like crying like, what? Oh my God, is this the right decision? And there's a great picture of us. Like she's like, right when we got the phone call, like crying. And I just snapped a selfie of us. I'm like laughing. It was so funny.
Well, because when you first start out, depending what environment you grew up in, you probably don't know anyone who's done this before. And so we were like 27, half of our friends, some of our friends are still living with their parents. Some of our friends are still renting apartments. Like very few of them were even like buying a home in general.
Yeah.
So not only are we buying a home that no one's doing, we're also buying a 2-family, which we don't know anyone has done, and it's going to be an investment property, and it's in an area like hours away from our family. Like, so it was just a lot at first. It was definitely very scary.
And there's nothing out there to say, is this the correct decision? Did we analyze this property correctly? Because we had never done that before. Jump ahead. That's exactly why we created the Instagram, was to document from beginning to end what we did. A couple different reasons. One, for us to then be able to refer back on our second property, but then also to be like, this is kind of cool. And that's why Laura started the blog too, to start to educate a beginner, beginning to end the process of searching for the deal, closing, renovating, refinancing, what have you.
Did y'all get like a lot of backlash from like your families and stuff like that? People like don't like understand. Oh, are you sure you want to do that? That seems a lot risky. I mean,
I would say our immediate family was like, y'all are crazy, but we support you.
Yeah.
And then, like friends and like people who don't know us as well, definitely, every time you say you're going to have a rental property, they tell you about the leaky toilet or the one time that they rented out their house and it was a horrible experience. And, nothing against them, but what we've learned is that like they probably didn't set themselves up well.
Yeah.
And we were really going into this treating it like a business. So we appreciated their advice and their experience, but we were kind of going to do it anyway.
And it's funny to look back at what the advice was, and is now when we talk to people with getting some experience under our belt. The leaky toilet, definitely the horror tenant that you hear about. And then also, we'll explain the Bur property strategy to people, and they're like, oh, that's illegal. That's got to be illegal.
And we're like, no, it's actually like a really great financial, strategy. So it is interesting. But what's cool now, and which I think is a good metric to see how far we've come, is my dad is very much like, save your money, invested in the stock market, in retirement accounts, like a very traditional, like smart financial mindset. And he was the one that was like, y'all are crazy, but we're going to support you. And now it's funny because when he's like, hey, how's your day going? And I'm like, good. We just put in an offer on this house. He's like, okay, cool. So like, what do you want to do for dinner this weekend? Like, doesn't even like ask any questions now. Like, it's just like normal to him. So I just feel like that's really cool that we've proved ourselves to him and to people in our family that we know what we're doing. This is successful. And, it's a smart move.
Yeah, that's nice to like the people that like doubted you at the beginning of. They're like, oh, well, now they have full confidence, so you kind of gives you more confidence. Like, oh, okay, yes, they believe in me. So, Lauren, so you were kind of new to like construction and everything. I know Kyle said he was like that was like his backstory, how he kind of got into it and everything like that. Was it weird for you to kind of get into like the construction mindset?
Oh, it was interesting. So I definitely had the minutest DIY experience, and that like I helped my mom with like projects at home and stuff, but by no means have I done anything like construction related. And so when we first did our property, before we closed, I sat down and I went on Home Depot and I listed out every material we were ever going to need: toilets, cabinets, flooring. Like I priced it out. I was like, I got this renovation rehab down. Like it was so naive of me. There were so many things I didn't think of. And I didn't realize how much work went on, behind the walls and under the floors. And we'd have a plumber come in and he'd be like, all right, great. That's going to be $3,000. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, we don't even get to see that. Like, no one sees that. That $3,000 is not visual. And it took me a really long time to realize that. And now, looking back, I'm obviously so glad that we took the time to take care of these like big CapEx items, because now as the property manager, I don't get maintenance calls because we replaced the waistline, we replaced the electric, we upped, we did new appliances, new toilet, everything. So I'm very fortunate that we did that. But at the time, I was like mind blown.
It's definitely a different strategy. If let's just say you were going to flip it and it's not going to be really your property any longer, but these are long-term plays for us and we're going to be holding them for a long time. So we want to make sure that we're really good to our future self and make sure that we're not getting those phone calls. Just to circle back, those phone calls for the leaky toilet or the clogged waistline at midnight on a Saturday
holiday
the summer,
weekend,
holiday weekend, because that tends to be when they all happen. So we've done that, and realistically, the management side, knock on wood, how many hours a month do you think?
If we don't have a turnover, I would say anywhere from 1 to 4 hours a month on property management.
Because we tackled those CapEx items at the beginning during those renovations.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So I guess what would be like y'all's favorite part? Because like y'all kind of how y'all started and where you're now. What's the favorite part of real
What
estate?
keeps you going?
Yeah,
It's funny because ours is totally different. Like we talk about where we live, and like I live in the renovation. I love that stage. Lauren hates that stage. She loves the management stage. I hate that stage. So, but that's what makes us great partners, because she picks up where I don't like to be. Like that's a heavy lift for me, management, things like that, and that's a light lift for her. So that's why we work really well.
It took us a while to figure that out, because in the beginning we did everything together. We were touring every property together, analyzing every property, going to Home Depot together, renovating together, screening the tenants together, everything. And it was fun because we both got to see what went into each other, and so we got some baseline experience,
which is important, to some extent.
But we saw our opposites as a negative at first. Like, you don't understand. Why don't you like this? And I think Kyle would love it if his wife loves renovations as much as him, because his love language is quality time. And so if I was just there all the time with him, he would love it, but it's not good for our business.
Yeah.
For a business partner, you should have opposite strengths and opposite weaknesses, so you could work well together. So it took us a little while to figure that out, but now it's a great setup.
Now we're really just polishing how to work both of those together. Mm-hmm. And make sure that the ball doesn't get dropped.
Like smooth transitions as we're handing things back and forth.
Yeah.
So you almost had to identify the roles, kind of like in your marriage, each person has roles, kind of the business aspect, each person had to figure out y'all's role. Who has what role? I know Kyle's in construction, you're in management. Do you have a certain person who does the deal finding, the deal analyst, or anything like that?
Yeah, so we'll take it back to the first steps, which is just the property search. Lauren, that's kind of a dual role. We're both always on the MLS looking at potential properties. Then we'll do the property walkthrough realistically together, because that does kind of cover both of our lanes. The analyzation, just one of us will do it, and then at that point, if we put it, Lauren takes it over for the offer and all of that pre-closing.
Yeah, I work with our agent, or if it's not an agent, I work with our attorney. And then if we close, I work with whatever type of funding. So the person we're either borrowing the money from or the bank, and I take care of all those documents. So if it involves paperwork, I'm doing it. And then once we close, I kind of hand it back over to Kyle. He runs with it with the contractors and the subs, or himself.
So at the beginning, we were DIYing essentially everything. I had a plumber, electrician, HVAC, but I was 100% at the property all the time, always doing work. We are now going to be pulling out of those roles and being more managerial, and I'm going to be just running a crew, or I'm just going to be having a contractor do the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm still overseeing that contractor until the job's done. But once it's done, I hand it back to Lauren.
Yeah, and then meanwhile, I'm doing the bookkeeping. I cut all the checks. And then once the unit is rent ready, I list it, do all the property management, find the tenants, screen them, do all the tours, make sure they're settled in, and then keep them happy throughout the lease.
And then we did say that as the property manager, that she would kind of take care of the maintenance calls, but kind of what's even better in that role, I think what we're finding now, is because we use a lot of our subs as the people to go do the maintenance calls. Lauren almost acts in a secretary role, in that she takes the call from the tenant. She calls me, tells me the problem. I call my sub, get him over there, and then bill it back to Lauren.
You kind of act as the maintenance supervisor.
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Is it hard though? Because I when we renovated our second house, it was brutal, because it was hey, you work this full-time job, and then I gotta go renovate a house and gut this whole job. I hated it. So is it a struggle? Is it hard to you just work 40 hours, boom, okay, dang, I gotta go rip up and demo this house, and I gotta do flooring and all this stuff. Is it kind of hard to?
When we first started, I was still on shift work, so I was 2 weeks days and then 2 weeks of midnights. So Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I was tired a lot.
And it's still a grind because we're still doing a lot of the renovations with this current project. Like Kyle said, we're going to be stepping back. Like it is a grind. And I think we are just very aware of the time of our life we're in right now is where we have the most time and flexibility because we don't have children yet. And so we're trying to just take advantage of it as much as possible. And we're aware that we're not going to have as much time in the future, which is why we're putting more systems in place and trying to pull ourselves back from the day to day because we do like eventually want to start a family. And
but it's like what we've done, being so involved, is so beneficial to us moving forward, using other people to do the work because we understand the ins and outs and how things get done. And when we get pricing for jobs, it's not like, whoa, that's insane. No, because we actually understand a little bit more what goes into it.
All the legwork in the background.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it just y'all? Like y'all finance like your house tax by yourself, or everything by yourself? Is it just y'all just saving up, or how do y'all usually like y'all partners or?
So before our first property, I had zero savings. Like I said, I was terrible with finances. I was horrible. I was living paycheck to paycheck. Lauren was she was the saver. So before our first duplex, our first place, she had about 70K saved up just from growing up. That's what financed
birthday cards, part-time job.
That funded the purchase. And then some of the renovation. The rest of it we used like 0% down credit cards, and then we refied and was able to pull almost all of the renovation cost out
to pay those
off.
Now we use a mix of our own money, private lending, and then like traditional bank financing. We haven't partnered with anyone yet because we're so opposite. We make good partners, and we haven't really found the perfect partner that would like fill any weaknesses or gaps that we have right now. So right now it's just the two of us. But yeah, bank financing, HELOCs, private lending. We haven't used hard money yet, but we'd be open to that if the deal made sense.
And it wasn't until our third property that we kind of opened our eyes to what our goals were and the rate that we were accumulating properties. So the first two were just from savings. And we then reflected and we're like, okay, our goals are this. Well, we're not going to get there at this rate of doing like a property a year because of just the way that we accumulated money and at the rate we did. So the third property was our first foray into private money, and that worked really, really well. Our investors were very happy with it. The property worked out really well. It appraised. So that kind of opened up to us being able to do more properties a year.
Well, and like we originally said, like originally our goal was to just not have to work past 55. And then, as you get into real estate, like how awesome this is. And like, you can have larger goals. And so we then changed our goals. And it's funny, every year they change and they get more aggressive. But basically we realized that like what was working for us then, like what got us to that point is not what's going to get us to our next point. And so that was like a nice mindset shift for us.
Yeah. So how do y'all structure when you take on private money? Because I know some people that do that, and that can kind of get complicated. How do y'all kind of structure those deals that benefits both of y'all?
So it kind of depends on the lender. We typically will do like a percentage of the loan. And so if they want to do the purchase price and the renovation, they can. Or if they just want to do a portion, we try not to have more than 2 private lenders on a deal. And then we do interest-only payments throughout, and then the bulk at the end of the loan. We could usually renovate and refinance within 6 months, but we'll still do the loan for 9 months just to give us some wiggle room with no prepayment penalty. So if we do happen to get a bank to do that refinance super quick on the 6-month mark, we can pay them back then. But it's really just like we want to make sure it's a win-win with the lender. So the percentage depends on what their goals are and what they're looking for. So I know that the it depends answer is not always the best, but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Every deal is different.
Yes, exactly.
So if someone's listening to this and they want to try to get a private money, like how would they go about trying to find that partner or structuring that? Like, how do you just call the title company or a lender you knew, write up the contract? How does that all even work?
So to find the lender, there's not like, you can't get on and Google private money lender. So it's
Right.
all about relationships and developing and nurturing those relationships. So it's really, we're big on investor groups. You can really meet a bunch of people there. Some just being lenders, people that have some extra money and they want to loan it to somebody that's going to give them a good return. Um, I've met lenders on the golf course. I mean, anywhere, really. You strike up a conversation, then they get learning what you're into, and then all of a sudden you've got somebody wanting to loan you money. And that was what Instagram really paid off, because it was almost like a running resume for us.
Yeah.
People could go on, see what we did, that we were successful in doing what we were doing. So just for instance, quick story. We had a sit down with a potential lender. We talked for like 2 hours. We didn't touch on anything having to do with real estate or how we were going to structure that. And at the end, we were like, "Oh, well, do you want to hear about the properties?" And he was like, "No, we're good. Like, I already know what you guys do. I just wanted to meet you guys and just talk."
Yeah.
So the money will come once you start to do some properties.
Yeah, and you could start in your like a smaller circle first. Like the first time we did private money was with family, so you could start there, start with friends. And I'm a very big fan of Matt Fairclough's book, Raising Private Capital. Whatever we say, we just basically got from that book. It's a very good book, and it's very practical. Like, it's not theoretical. So he gives like steps, like, now you're going to do this, then step 2, you're going to do that. So I think that book's really good. And then you also asked about kind of like the paperwork behind that. So there are a few different pieces that you can use to legitimize the deal, or the loan, if you will, but usually it's like a promissory note and then filing the lien with the county so that the lender has like leverage over the property. But you could do all of this either through an attorney, and then in terms of like the actual transferring of the money, you could use the title company.
Yeah. You actually recommended that book to me, and I read it, and I thought it was pretty good too. It was definitely very knowledgeable of like kind of explaining kind of how to set everything up and whatnot.
And I just, out of curiosity, I know he's talked to you guys before, but you keep referencing your first duplex. How many years are y'all into this?
This past May makes 4 years. So we started with a duplex May 2017, and now we have 10 units and a few like garage storage bays.
Very cool.
Oh wow.
And so do you do anything other? I know you mentioned the Bur house hacking's number 1. You do Bur. Are there any other strategies you've tried out?
Those are so we kind of utilize those strategies in different areas of our investment. So we tried to, because house hacking offers such great financial benefits, we try to house hack in nicer areas where maybe a straight up rental or a Bur wouldn't make sense. So this allows us to get higher debt, which is good in the long term because it helps for long-term wealth creation, but because there's a bigger principal pay down each year. And then it just, obviously gets us to diversify and gets us in like nicer neighborhoods. And then we Bur in maybe more of like a B class neighborhood because the numbers make sense there. Those areas are definitely more for cash flow, but like the appreciation in the long-term wealth gains, maybe not there as much. So by utilizing both strategies, it allows us to create a more well-rounded portfolio.
Yeah, and being able to invest in those more expensive areas opens us up to essentially in years to come being our own bank. So we'll have enough equity that we would be able to open up a HELOC and be able to fund a purchase and a renovation without having to use any lenders.
Right. Very cool.
So can you explain to people who may not know what the Bur method is?
Yeah, so it is an acronym, which means buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And basically, it is a way to recycle money in real estate so that you could scale at a quicker rate. So to break it down a little bit more, and I'll use a real example that we actually did, property number 3 that Kyle mentioned before. So we bought a house for $25,000. It was off market, straight from the seller. We put around $40,000 into the renovation. It was half DIY, half subbed some of it out. So I'm just pulling out my calculator so I could get you guys some actual numbers. So we're all in for 40 plus 25,000. So we're all in for 65,000. We put a tenant in there for $13.25, and after 6 months, we refinance it. The house appraises for 117,000, and we were able at that time to do 75% LTV. So 75% of 117,000 is 87,750 minus us being all in
65.
for 65 means we were able to actually profit $22,750. So basically, not only did we get all of our money back, but we also made money. And that money's tax-free because it's not like a flip. We didn't sell it. It's not income. It's technically debt, so you don't have to pay taxes on it. So we took the money that we got back.
And we give our lender like 6%.
Yeah. Plus the profit, and we're able to take that money and go buy another property. So it's a way to just like keep recycling your money and buying more properties. It doesn't work in every market. It doesn't work with every property. You have to make sure that not only is the ARV there, the forced appreciation there, but you also have to make sure that the rent's high enough to afford that increased refinance value. So you want to make sure to keep cash flowing. So when it works, it works, and it's great, but it doesn't always work in every market.
So like we didn't recycle that into another Bur, which you would essentially want to do. We used that to get into a house hack in the more expensive market that we referenced before.
Yeah. Okay. I think the hardest part even with the Bur is starting out, like getting the finances, because you typically have to do either private money or or all cash or a line of credit. Did y'all? I don't know if you explained this earlier. Did you use a line of credit to purchase the house?
Yeah, it depends what the condition of the home is. So technically, our first property, our house hack, we technically burred. We didn't necessarily go into it that way, but we were able to use conventional financing and then just refinance again 6 months later. But typically when you're burring, you're buying a house that needs a lot of renovations, and a conventional bank might not necessarily lend on that. That's when private money, hard money, or your HELOC comes into play. So for property number 3 that I was just giving all the numbers on, we used all private money. But a property 5, we used a HELOC to purchase that property and do the renovation. So it definitely is hard because that first property, especially if you want to burr, and you can't get conventional financing, that means you either have to get private money, and like who's going to lend to you if you don't have experience, or you need hard money. What hard money lender is going to lend to you if you don't have experience, or you need a HELOC, which you probably don't have because it's your first property. So not to say that I don't think Bur is a good first investment, but I think it definitely has higher barriers, which is why we just preach house hacking so much, because anyone, for the most part, can get into a house hack.
Right.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah. Do y'all focus on like multifamilies, or do you have any single family units?
We went into investing thinking that it was going to be, our portfolio would just be full of residential multifamilies.
Because we were very focused on like unit count.
Yes,
and obviously, a duplex or a triplex or a fourplex gets you to that unit count a lot quicker than a single family.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we then discussed like our goals and what we wanted to do that we kind of decided that a unit count doesn't really matter, and more so cash flow is more important. So we started to just research some other markets, and Lauren came to me with a single family home, which wasn't our initial goal. That just cash flowed so well. So that was, and then we kind of just opened our eyes to different types of properties. But yeah, we have a mix of both residential multi and single.
Yeah, we basically house hack small multis and then burr single family homes.
Yep.
Okay. So what would you say is your best deal you've done so far?
That's like property number 5.
Yeah.
So I'll do it.
So well, I would think property number 3, but property number 5 was awesome because we did nothing.
Yeah. Okay. So let's.
That's why she likes, because she didn't have to renovate it all.
Exactly. I'm like, I went property number 5 because I didn't have to lift a finger. So basically, for that one, it was an off-market deal. And before I dive into it, the reason I think it's our best deal is because we utilize so many different tactics and things all into one deal, which helped us grow a lot. And then we also made a lot of money. So in terms of like personal and business growth and cash flow, it kind of wins in all categories. But basically, it was a property that we found off of a direct mail campaign. And it was the first time ever doing direct mail. And we spoke to the seller. We identified his pain points. We came up with an offer that solved his problem and was beneficial for us.
Yeah.
Kyle negotiated it. So it was the first time like really negotiating.
Yeah. Who wrote that book? Who wrote that book? Was that Dave Green?
About negotiations.
Negotiating real estate.
I think it was Jay Scott.
Jay Scott. Yeah. I was like in like the second chapter of that book, like negotiating real estate. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm going to go negotiate a deal face to face. But it worked. I mean, it really worked. It ended up doing really well.
Yeah. So we got that experience. Then it was like closing an off-market deal. And we had done it before, but this time we just wanted to be more like cognizant of it. So I was like creating SOPs along the way. So, we worked with our lawyer and drafted up all the documents. And then we actually bought the property with tenants. So it wasn't our first time inheriting tenants, but not something that we do often. So like that was like another thing we had to overcome was inheriting tenants. And we ended up, so we bought it for $38,000. We had to put, I would say maybe like $5 or $6 into it. There was just some deferred maintenance. We had to like fix the roof. We had to replace the furnace.
Yeah, it was a boiler that was bad.
Yeah, but no actual like renovations because there's a family living in there. We didn't like go in and do any crazy renovations. We like switched out a vanity and some faucets and just took care of some things that they had. And then thanks to this insane market, because we bought this in October of 2020, so like really in the middle of the pandemic. 6 months later, we refinanced and the market's doing insane. So it appraised for 114 or something. No, 126. It appraised for $126,000. Did a cash out refinance, did like 75% LTV. And we were able to get all of our money back plus some. So it was just, if we broke down how much money we made in tax-free income divided by how many hours we put into that deal, I mean, it's like almost like $1,000 an hour at that point.
Yeah.
So granted, when this family moves out, we will have to go in and do a renovation. So the work's not done, but for the time being, it worked out just being an amazing deal.
And it was funny because outside of the negotiation and like looking at the property before we actually put an offer in, I didn't do anything after that. All of the rest of the responsibility just fell within Lauren's like lane. So I constantly forget that we even own that place.
He doesn't know the address. He doesn't know the zip code. He doesn't like.
It's hilarious.
He doesn't know his name.
You didn't got anything.
No.
Why is that not your favorite?
Because I forget about it. Honestly, I swear I've forgotten about that property. She'll say the name of the street, and I'm like, what?
So what for your direct mail? Like what made you choose that area? Did you just send it out to like anywhere near you? Like how did you go about deciding where to use your direct mail campaign?
We started in the market that we Bur in, and what started happening, and we started noticing it was a lot of investors were starting to hone in on that area. So MLS finds were beginning to be very hard. Prices were a little bit up, and they didn't really work for the Bur strategy that we were doing in that area. So we started to open our minds to a little bit more creative deal finding. And then Lauren just had done some research on mail campaigns, and we eventually moved to like a phone call, like a cold call campaign too.
But we kept it very small. Like, as investors, we're getting postcards in the mail every day from people doing direct mail. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is like batch postcards, batch letters. It's not personalized. And I was like, how can we differ ourselves from these people? So we sent out 40 letters. That was it. We hand addressed the envelopes. We did print the letters, but we included a photo of ourselves. We like made the letter pretty personalized with the address and like things that were around the property. And my goal was to just get the letter opened, which is why we hand addressed. And I guess, it could be beginner's luck. It could be that we were so personalized, but we ended up getting a deal from it. And I think that's what set us up well. And it was funny because the seller actually said, I've gotten many letters before, but for some reason, I just felt like I wanted to open yours. So, luck, skill, I don't know.
It was definitely the bright pink envelope she put it in.
Probably.
Make it stand out. That's all.
Yeah. So y'all are located in New Jersey, I think, right?
Correct.
New Jersey. Y'all only invest in New Jersey?
Yeah.
Currently, yeah.
I mean, if you do live in New Jersey, I would not invest or recommend investing here because high property taxes, high prices, not very landlord friendly. But when you're starting out, there's so many things you have to overcome when you invest in real estate, and like investing out of state just seems like a whole other thing to add on. So like, let's just keep it home and close to home. So we did, and we like it. So, could we get better deals outside of the state? It's possible.
Yeah.
But we're doing well here and we like it. And so that's what we're kind of doing for now.
And because we self-manage and we were renovating it ourselves, it just made sense for keeping everything geographically close. I mean, all of our properties are within 15 minutes of each other right now. So.
Well, and I feel like starting out, if you live near the market, it gives you a huge advantage over people that are reaching out from somewhere else.
And that's how we found our first market, was because it was a house hack. We wanted it to be in a place that obviously made sense investment-wise, but also we wanted it to be in a place that we liked living. So we drove the area. We liked that it was a walkable downtown with public transportation that went to a major city where a lot of people work, but may not want to live in the major city. So it did make sense to invest there, as well as it just being a pretty cool town to live in.
Yeah. Well, and it seems a little bit safer too when you want to live there yourself.
Exactly.
And finding tenants for an area, it just makes more sense.
Like we were our future clients, if you will. Like we were a young couple looking for a place to live in a town with good restaurants, walkable bars, close to the city. And those is what our tenants ended up being. So it was kind of nice for us to go see what our wants and needs were, so that when we were then renovating our units, we could make sure we were giving that same experience to our tenants.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. And it's kind of like real estate is so competitive. You kind of want to do anything that you can get a competitive advantage for. Because that's what, for us, it's really hard. Hey, would I invest out of state? But I have such a big advantage to know so many people here. It's kind of really hard to invest outside your strength if you have so much of a competitive advantage here than anywhere else.
Especially when you're still
scaling. Your Home Depot example from like an hour ago.
Oh, yeah. I had to go pick up a door. So I'm walking through, and there's an elderly woman. She's looking at doors. She didn't really know what she was looking at. So I spent like 10 minutes and talked to her about it. And then all of a sudden she's like, yeah, I live in Moorestown. I've lived there forever. And we're like, wow, that's hilarious, because that's where we just moved. So now all of a sudden, like, we're talking about me going over, maybe doing her door. But then she was like, yeah, I own this 4-acre lot that, I don't know. I want to sell it, but I don't want to sell it. Now, granted, we're not in development or like, new builds, but
you can't make these local connections if you're not here.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, you never know what helping somebody with a door will turn.
Absolutely.
And you said no one should invest in New Jersey. I mean, of course, if they don't want to invest with y'all, right?
Well, no. We'll take it. You want to be a private lender, but it's a difficult market. And if you're going to choose to invest out of state, there are just other markets to invest in.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest lesson you've learned since diving in?
Oh man.
Or has there been one mistake that just was like awful that you learned the most from? Or
so I've never had to fire anybody until I made the mistake of going with the absolute cheapest labor rate for a contractor that you can find. So it was definitely just, you get what you pay for, and it is worth spending a little bit of extra money to get somebody that is quality and that you can trust.
Yeah, and then I feel like that's a good renovation example. And then just from the business side, we've learned so much about each other as a couple, because when you're working and running a business together, you have a lot of you put yourselves in different situations, and you have different conversations, and you have different goals. And so I just feel like we know each other a lot better now than if we didn't work together.
Yeah, there's we've developed this relationship now outside of just being a couple that you wouldn't normally get unless you did what we do together. It's definitely brought a deeper part to our relationship, working together, because it's been tough. I mean, honestly, if I say it was all great, I'd be lying.
It creates opportunities for like deeper lows but higher highs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely starting out like renovating when like your relation when you're dating. Like I understand that because it was like everyone saw on social media. It's like, oh, they're so happy. You didn't see us like yelling at each other across the house about renovating.
He'd come home. I'd be like, "Let's tear the floor out." He's like, "The floor's fine. It doesn't need to be torn."
Exactly. Yeah, and we were renovating together before we got married, so like it was a true test.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You learn a lot renovating together.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's for sure.
That's for sure.
And I guess so. You guys have the Instagram account where you said that was you created that for like your guide. What made you take it to YouTube as well?
So there's a few reasons. One is Instagram you can only do so much. I mean, it has stories and it has posts, but like we kind of wanted to be more creative and create like a more cohesive piece of content. And then also like, being active on social media takes a lot of time and effort. And we love helping people and we love sharing our knowledge, but like it's time consuming. But we don't want to like charge for our knowledge. We don't want to like do one-on-one coaching. We don't want to create a course. We don't want to do all these things. But like being compensated for our time would be nice. And so YouTube is a really great way to kind of like monetize what we're doing, but still keep it free for the end user. So we're providing knowledge at the expense of like a larger corporation. And we felt like that was a win-win because we still get to provide all the knowledge free to the people who need it, but we're able to get like a little bit of a financial kickback.
And we're definitely providing more knowledge because we can really dive a lot deeper and show. Yeah, go ahead. We can dive deeper and show a lot more of what we do than what an Instagram story would be able to provide. What we would end up doing is we'd end up putting a story or a post up and then fielding questions for a week, 2 weeks, instead of just showing a little bit more in depth, maybe a how-to or real life scenario. I mean, that's kind of what our YouTube channel is more of a camera on the shoulder, showing from beginning to end exactly what we're doing, how we're kind of tackling problems that we come across, just spitballing ideas off of each other and seeing the real life conversation, how it happens real time with us. So YouTube is definitely more beneficial to the audience, not just us.
Yeah, and I feel like it's really good. Like I always feel like even when I buy a house and stuff, like I always felt like we're going to help a lot of people. So even like you documenting your process, like for me, when I buy stuff, it's like non-emotional. I get very emotional about it. But it's like when you see people, like when you help people, even like people learn through you. That's how I feel like it's like truly inspiring to see like you help people. And that is probably what like one of the things about your YouTube channel. It does really help a lot of people. A lot of people can learn from your show.
Absolutely, and the audience that we meet along the way end up like there's a guy on Instagram that I'll be in the middle of doing some project and I'll just FaceTime him real quick and be like, hey, how do I do this? And it's just a guy that we met on Instagram. He's an investor as well. And the real estate investment community on social media has been awesome. Like usually you see the comment section, it gets like really mean. Like, it's not like that.
Keyboard warriors.
We don't roll like that in the real estate community.
Yeah.
Everyone's super nice, helpful. It's a really awesome thing to be a part of.
I love it.
So true.
This keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible.
That's funny.
That's when we did our bathroom. Like I would start posting everything, and it would like make you second guess yourself because they were grilling you. I was like, dang.
No, every project you learn, you have to redo some things a couple of times.
Exactly. At our first house, we were laying laminate flooring for the first time, and Kyle has only laid
like 3/4 inch hardwood, where everything's in different sizes.
So he didn't know that laminates came in the exact same size. So he started laying it kind of like tile. So there was like a very strict pattern. And we did hardcore. And we posted it on our Instagram. And someone was like, hey, you're supposed to throw the seams. It shouldn't be like this rigid pattern. It should look natural. And I was like, Kai, this guy on Instagram said we got to
and then right when he said it, I was like, yeah, I mean, dude, that makes sense. Because when you do hardwood, there's no pattern to it. Like you don't want to see a pattern. So luckily we were only like 7 rows into this like huge room, so the start over wasn't too bad. But
we started over.
Yeah, because we and I am a big advocate for if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. So if you have to restart it, you restart it because you're learning. When I see problems like that or things come up, Jocko podcast I listen to, he'll say, like, when something, he gets a problem, good. I'm glad I got a problem because now I get an opportunity to learn something here. So,
Yeah.
and that's we've redone multiple projects.
I was gonna say, I laugh because we learned that lesson, I think, tiling our bathroom shower floor.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that the mortar was different for the floor. And
Yeah.
some guy on TikTok said something, and he's like, hey, this guy is saying. So we tore out the bathroom floor like twice and redid it the correct way. And we learned the best products to use. Now we're good to go on.
Well, that's why we say, like, you have to actually start in order to do a lot of things. Like, you could read a book, you could watch YouTube, you could listen to podcasts. And I think people get so stuck in like that analysis paralysis. And you eventually get to a point where the only way to keep learning is to actually just take action.
Which we didn't buy our first property until 2017. We got into wanting to do it for like almost 2 years prior to that. It was like, I feel like we're not there yet. We need to learn a little bit more. But it's those lessons that you learn throughout that are way more important than any book or podcast that you can read or listen.
Because even if you lose money, it's still, you learn something from it. So you're not going to do the same stupid mistake.
And it's not really going to be like, do some research prior to, so you have a knowledge, so you know how to analyze a deal to some extent. But that's why we like the house hack also, because there's definitely more padding there. But nothing's going to be like some world-ending problem.
Yeah. I think that is the hardest part, though, is to kind of like, it's like, oh, this is going to be another deal. Or, hey, like, I know a lot of people that have been like me as a realtor, they're saying like, oh, I'm going to buy my first investment property this year. And I keep talking to them and say, oh, no. Like, they always have the kind of being scared. But they listen to all the podcasts and they can't take that, like what if something goes wrong? What if all this stuff? It's like the fear stopped them for like.
Well, and that's also why you don't waive inspections either, right?
Yeah.
You get the inspection, you're going to know what's wrong with the place. There's not going to be some massive surprise when you start to dive into it.
One thing about renovating, you could probably attest to this, is like even with inspection, like when you do renovations, there's always something you don't like. When you rip the house apart, you find stuff that you don't know. I don't care how well you go through, or if Lauren makes her like complete list from top to bottom. There's always got to be probably something.
If there's a lot of the places that we invest in have plaster and lath, and if you say I'm just going to replace this plaster and lath, no, you're not, because you're going to take that plaster and lath off, and there's going to be something that you're going to find behind it that you're going to have to replace.
The house that we're sitting in right now that we're currently renovating was just supposed to be like new flooring, new paint, new cabinets, new appliances.
Yeah.
We gutted the entire thing because every time we took something down, we found something. And then it's like, well, if we're going to fix this, we might as well fix that. And if we're going to fix this, we might as well fix that. And, like we said, our future selves, I'm sure, will thank us in the future. But at the moment, I was like, this damn house.
Yeah.
So I guess what would be your best advice for your 20-year-old self when you had gotten into this?
20.
Okay, 20-year-old self, we were sophomores and juniors at Brown University, so we're in college. I would have 1,000% wish we bought a house to live in. We were both in sororities and fraternities. I wish we bought our houses and had our friends live with us and start like an investment property that way.
Yeah.
We actually did a grant for a bunch of undergrads a couple months ago, and they were all kind of asking, like, how can we start while we are in college? And we're like, do you live off campus? Yes. Do you have roommates? Yes. All right, go buy a house and have your friends live with you.
Because it doesn't have to be a multi. Like, it could be a rent by the room. So, I wish.
And then also, I was very fortunate. My mom put me as an authorized user on her credit card when I was 18. So I had free credit coming out of the bat. If you don't have that, if you're like 18 or 20 years old, I highly recommend getting a credit card, but only use it for like one transaction a month and pay it off in full just to start building that credit. Because as much as like I don't think a credit score is a good representation of someone's financial responsibility, banks do. And it's very hard for people to get qualified for good loans when they're so young because they don't have that credit history. So get one, be very responsible, pay it off every month. It is not free money. It's important.
That's smart, because I hear a lot of times I pay my bills on time, but people don't realize your rent, your phone bill, all that stuff doesn't really matter to creditors.
Exactly.
When you're trying to get something.
I think kind of backtrack to what you said earlier when you said you saved all the money before you met Kyle. Do you have any tips? Because I know a lot of people have really issues with saving and budgeting money. Do you have any tips to help save and budget money or anything like that? Or
So when I was younger, I think we were kind of growing up with a frugal mindset. Like my parents were very much like, don't buy something just for the sake of it. Pay yourself first. I worked at Rita's Italian Ice, was my first job in high school, and I was making $5 an hour, and I got a raise to $5.25. I got a whole quarter raise. And my dad was like, great, do not increase your spending. Put that 25 cents in the bank. And so he just kind of reiterated that to me growing up, which is really nice. Now as adults, I'm still same principles, but it really is just kind of pay yourself first. Automatically have money pulled out of either your check or your bank account as soon as you get paid and have it go to savings so you don't even know it's missing. And then track your spending. I mean, it's crazy. You realize what you're spending money on until you actually look at it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you have, Kyle admittedly was not good with money. So how do you think you got there?
Sam, what did you do wrong?
So I got there just because like her parents instilled that mindset. Mine did not instill that mindset. So I worked, but there was no financial talk. Like my parents are just not, they're blue collar people. They're not financial people at all. So I just didn't have that mindset until me and Lauren got together. I never looked at my bank statement. My money, I could have 20 subscriptions to things and I just have no idea. I don't even know I have them. So it was that mindset shift into just knowing where your money's going for me. That's the biggest.
That's definitely the biggest thing. I see, a lot of people just don't track their money. They have one account and then they pay their bills and you're like, oh, where'd that money go? Because they have no idea. Yeah. And me and Emily's relationship is kind of a lot like y'all's relationship.
Pretty
She's
similar.
all about budgeting. Me, I saved a lot of money, but I didn't buy nothing. I'm saying I didn't even buy myself clothes. I got clothes for birthday and Christmas for my parents. I didn't spend nothing. I was a hoarder with money. And then she came along and was like, oh, no, you got to track this, track that. And I feel that's what a lot of people do kind of wrong is that even you growing, the more investment properties you have, you still got to track even more and more and more. And that's probably one of the main things that probably helped really through y'all's success is being extremely organized with money.
Yeah, absolutely. Once you have, that's why it's almost like the mindset is more important than the actual act of doing it. Because that'll just cross all areas of
yeah,
your life.
because if you're broke at $50,000 a year, you're going to be broke at $500,000 a year.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was going to say the mindset's even more important than what you're actually making or your income.
I heard a guy say they were talking about football players and how much they make and everything, but how much debt that they carry, and it's just no, they're just they're still broke. They're just broke at another level. That that I could never understand.
But I will say there is a hard balance between that financial independence, frugal Dave Ramsey camp, and then the leverage your life away real estate investor camp. We try to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
We're not big Starbucks drinkers, but if you like having your Starbucks coffee every day, that $5 a day isn't going to kill you. What is going to really help you is house hacking and reducing your rent by $1,000 a month. We're definitely after the big changes. We live for free, but we probably eat sushi more than we should.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
it's all balance.
Yeah.
We give each other allowances.
I was gonna say, yeah, we do because we did. That's how we got into this. We went on the Dave Ramsey kick, got all our debt paid off, and then we were like, okay, let's be smart. Let's not just stock up money. We need to start investing. So very similar.
Yeah. It prevents a lot of fights.
Well, I mean, so exactly because we kind of have allowances per se where we each get a percentage of our own paychecks to spend.
Yeah.
And Kyle was very much against it at first. And I was like, listen, I know I'm going to be, if we 100% share money and there's just this account that we both take money from for personal spending. If I go to the store and I pick up a cute pair of shoes and I go, do I really need it? And I say no, and I put it down. And then you come home from the store with a new pair of shoes, I'm going to be pissed. It's going to bother me. And I'm being open about that. So if we each have our own spending money, we have joint finances in other areas of our relationship. But if we each have our own spending money where we can't talk I'm not going to be pissed off when you go buy new golf clubs. I'm not going to be pissed off when you spend too much money on like a nice beer. That's your money. You can do whatever you want. So
Yeah, exactly.
it helps lessen arguments.
Food. That's where all my money goes. Food.
Yeah,
Same for him.
Mine too.
Vending machine at the shipyard for work.
Yeah. And hers is Amazon packages that come to my house every single day. But yeah, that's definitely like I feel like one of the big things, like even hearing y'all's story and even a lot of people's story is like the difference between like helping track your money. I feel like that's the biggest disconnection with a lot of people is like saving money for your next deal.
Yeah.
But like if you have that your mindset, hey, this is where we want to go, it kind of like helps you like force yourself to help discipline yourself to save money to invest because you both have a goal and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But I guess you did ask what the best piece of advice. But so just to kind of wrap everything up, where can people find more about you, learn more about you, or anything like that?
We're really big on Instagram at Rentals to Wealth, and then on our YouTube channel as well. We try to just document everything that we're doing in hopes that it helps people, inspires people, educates people, so you could do it as well. I don't think real estate should be a secret. I don't think it should be, kept by a certain amount of people. I think everyone should be able to do it. So if we could be a small part in someone else's journey, then we're happy.
We answer every comment, every message. So we're super open and transparent. So just reach out with anything you got.
Yeah. Because I know me personally, I've asked like tons of questions, and y'all have answered it because you referred to me to that book that really helped us out a lot. So they definitely practice what they preach. And they definitely will.
It might take us a little while, but we'll get to it.
Yep. All right. Well, I really appreciate y'all coming on here. I know a lot of people learned a lot, and I know I've learned a lot, even more about y'all also. So I really appreciate y'all coming on here and sharing your knowledge and your journey with all of us.
Well, thank you so much for having us. This is so much fun.